Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 2021 Formula One My Driver Career Mode. I hope you're all having a great day. Today, we have the Belgian Grand Prix coming your way, but first, we have an announcement right there from Ben. Kimi Räikkönen is actually going to be retiring at the end of this season here of Season 1 in our rookie debut season of our F1 My Driver Career Mode. So, Räikkönen out at Alfa Romeo, calling it a career at the end of the season. Who's going to replace him? We don't know, and obviously that's going to open up the door for a potential maybe Formula 2 driver to hop into the series starting next season. So Alfa Romeo is now on the look for a new driver to replace Kimi Räikkönen at the end of this season. As we're coming into this Belgian GP, last time out in Hungary, we had a lot better GP than I was anticipating. I was very, very happy with the result there in Hungary. So hopefully we can carry that momentum over here into Belgium. So a lot of high hopes coming into this, and after Belgium, actually, we are going to be going to the Netherlands, and that's another track that I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out. I've only done one race ever at the Netherlands there for the Dutch GP, so not sure exactly what to expect. I did hear that there's a few corners there that the AI are like unbelievably fast, and I've heard a lot of people have had to turn their AI down at the Netherlands, so that's something I'm looking into before the next episode gets underway, so we'll see what happens there. But we come through into free practice one here for the Belgian GP, and as usual, it feels like every single race weekend now we have some rain in practice and rain in qualifying, but the race always seems to be dry, and it was looking exactly like that was going to be the case here again in Belgium. We had some rain here in free practice one, but like I said, I'm trying to get as much experience I can in the rain at all of these tracks, because eventually there's a good chance we'll probably have to do some races at a lot of these tracks in the rain at some point in this My Driver career mode, so it's best to get the experience while I can now instead of trying to learn on the fly maybe in the race later down the line in season 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 and whatnot. So we felt pretty good actually in this Haas car. We of course now had a patch come out here just a few days ago, so this is my first time recording after the new patch had dropped, and I believe it changed a tiny little bit of R&D stuff. I couldn't tell, I might be wrong, I didn't really look into the patch notes too much, but the car overall felt really good. I was happy with what I was driving so far to start practice one, but of course we were in the wet conditions, so not a legitimate look of how this car was going to be performing in the dry conditions, which it will be a dry race. So we made these 3 laps here under the race strategy programs, and like I said, just felt good. I felt like I was hitting my marks well, and I was actually a lot better, I felt like, in the wet than I was in the dry. So coming through towards the end of this little 3-lap stint here for the race strategy, we put up a pretty respectable time, over a second and a half above the little target lap time. I actually spin the car out right here across the line, just trying to get the throttle down too hard, and around I went. So that was a bit unfortunate there, but we got it back going in the right direction and brought it back to the paddock there. So we came through into free practice 2, doing our little usual routine, simulating everything here, just getting as many resource points as we can get, and it was going pretty smoothly here now, as just hoping that we can just get some more resource points, because it feels like we're not getting enough to just overtake some of these teams. Of course, we're ahead of Williams, but we're trying to chase down Alpine still. We're trying to get Alfa Romeo. We're trying to get ahead of them. We're very even with Alfa Romeo lately, but we come through now into free practice 3, trying to do the qualifying pace program, and I actually destroyed the qualifying pace. I messed up turns 1. It was not pretty. This is my first lap on the dry tire, so obviously I wasn't ready for turns 1, but the rest of the lap was really, really good, and surprisingly good. Like I said, we absolutely obliterated the qualifying pace. I really made a mistake right there. Went way too much on the curbs there. Do not want to do that in the race. Now, the curbs very dangerous in Spa. Definitely learned that you got to be very, very careful with how you abuse those curbs here. So we came through into the final few turns there in this chicane, and we were a second and a half to the good, which we've never been before in the qualifying pace. We set a blistering lap time, but I was expecting really good things after this now as we came through turns 1, but I can confirm that I was definitely not as fast in qualifying as I thought we were going to be based off of the qualifying pace that we had set here in free practice 3, because you can see we were well faster than our teammate Mick Schumacher now as we come through into qualifying number 1. There was a threat of rain to start this session. The approximate guess was about 20%. So usually when you see anything above 20, there's definitely a realistic chance there's going to be some sprinkles on the track. But there was actually no rain whatsoever here to start this session. So we would go out, of course, just checking the radar. There you see it was 20% right there. But you can see it drastically falls over the next few minutes. But it never ended up raining anyways. So we get going out for our first attempt. And I came out in an awkward position. I end up being right in front of my favorite driver of Sebastian Vettel, and I felt really bad right here, even though it's just a video game. I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry, Seb, but I had to try and set the best lap I could, but I was holding him up the whole lap here, and it would actually get worse for Seb, because as we're going down towards this sweeping left-hander right here, I get too much curbs, too much throttle at the same time. I would bend the car off the track, and there goes Seb. His lap, of course, would just not be very good at all, because he had to avoid a crashing car, and he was stuck behind me prior to that incident. So we brought it back to the paddock and just threw a new set of soft tires on, and now I realize, well, I only got one shot now to either make it to Q2 or at least out-qualify my teammate of Mick Schumacher. So it was not the position I wanted to be in, and it was my own fault, of course, but we came through to start our second attempt, and we're only going to get one lap in because we had no time to do a second lap. So Vettel currently was in 19th place, and I was just in the back of my mind really hoping he was going to get a better lap so he could get himself into Q2. Otherwise I would have felt really bad, but sure enough, he would do just that. He would get into Q2 no problem. But we are coming through the second sector, and I was feeling pretty sporty here. I definitely made a few mistakes right there. You can see me go a little bit wide. We go down into the final chicane, through the penultimate turn, down into the final turn. Schumacher 17th. He will not advance into Q2. Neither will Kimi Räikkönen, who just announced he is retiring at the end of the season. We actually come through to cross the line one spot shy of Schumacher. We qualified P18 here in the Belgian GP. So a little bit unfortunate there, as we were about 4/10 off of Schumacher. So some work to do here in the Belgian GP as well. Get ready to send it over here to David Croft in just a moment. But you see George Russell and Nicholas Latifi at the back of the grid here as we get ready to take the green flag.
Welcome along then to the Belgian Grand Prix, the race that gave us the maiden victory for the Jordan team in 1998. And in the same team, the phenomenal debut of a young Michael Schumacher. There's always something special around one of the many corners of this fan-favourite circuit. Spa-Francorchamps then, a historic 19-corner circuit with a lap distance of 4.35 miles. There's over 100 metres of elevation change here, and with long stretches of the lap spent flat out, a good top speed will be vital for success. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the run down into turn one. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Norris, Leclerc, Max Verstappen and Perez, Sainz, Gasly, Vettel and Yuki Tsunoda, Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon and Ricciardo. They've taken a grid penalty. Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Mick Schumacher and the rookie, Russell and Nicholas Latifi. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
There you had the pre-race show there from Anthony Davidson as well as David Croft. Mercedes seems to be on it right now. Of course, we saw McLaren really putting a fight to them lately, but now over the last episode or two, Mercedes has gotten back on top. Of course, in Hungary, they were unbeatable. Lando Norris really seems to be McLaren's fighting force. Of course, Ricciardo does have a win. They got 3 wins total this season, with 1 for Ricciardo, 2 for Lando as we get this formation lap underway. But it'll be interesting to see if McLaren could potentially put the fight to them today here for Mercedes. All right, boys, Hungary was really good. I think it was a nice confidence booster for not only myself, but for you guys as well. So hopefully we can carry that over today, and hopefully at the end of it, we can at least come out in front of Mick. There you hear myself on the radio to the team here as we would get ready to go lights out here as we line up on the grid from 18th place right behind the Formula One World Champion of Kimi Räikkönen, who just announced he's retiring at season's end for Alfa Romeo. It's 5 red lights and now lights are out and we are underway. Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, and Lando Norris, your top 3 down towards turns 1. It's going to be 3 wide with Norris, I believe there is actually the Red Bull of Verstappen goes from like 4th to 2nd out of turns 1. A tremendous start there for the Red Bull driver now, as we saw Norris fade in behind both Verstappen as well as Charles Leclerc there in the Ferrari. Not the start he was looking for, and I feel like that's the fighting force that really the only team that has anything right here today for Mercedes is McLaren. So very unfortunate there for Lando Norris. Up front there you see Norris fighting back there, but up ahead you got Verstappen under pressure from Bottas, who's doing everything he can to complete that pass because he knows how important it is to fight against Lewis Hamilton on the start. Not going to happen there. Norris still trying to fight Leclerc there as they head down towards the right-hander, but Leclerc as well defends well and holds on to the position now as it's side by side. I see an Aston Martin there, and that is Lance Stroll who's going at it with the Alpine there, I believe, of Fernando Alonso in that number 14 car. So there you see the Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi right there behind them, ready to pounce if something happens, if they come together here through that long sweeping left curve. Lance Stroll, the Canadian, though, comes out on top of that battle over Fernando Alonso, the 2-time Formula One World Champion there, as we had a pretty solid start myself. It wasn't great because I actually lost a little bit of ground. Here's a really quick look at it. So you can see as I go down towards turns 1, I just did not have the power down enough. The car just didn't take off very well. So we lose a spot here to Latifi just about now as we come through out of turns 1, but then we would be able to hold him off. So we only lost 1 spot to Russell, and then I would actually be able to take that spot away from him here at towards the end now of lap 1 because he leaves the door open. This is a bit of an aggressive move, but we complete the pass before we get this little bend here on the left, so made it work. The car didn't feel very stable right through there for some reason on this opening lap, but it seemed to calm down here now that we were settling in, as is up in front of us Ricciardo going at it side by side with Antonio Giovinazzi now. So Ricciardo a little bit down the order, a lot further down the order than he would like to be, especially compared to his teammate of Lando Norris now, as we would actually already have a yellow flag behind us. Nicholas Latifi has had an engine failure, or at least a mechanical failure of some sorts now as he's pulling off the track, and day over for the Williams driver, one of the Canadians of 3 out here today now. As we came through a little bit later on lap 2, we had actually lost a little bit of ground to the drivers in front of us of Kimi Räikkönen in 17th place, Mick Schumacher there in P16. I was a little bit disappointed by seeing this because I saw, of course, in practice we had the pace in the car. Qualifying we were a little bit off, and it looks like so far we're a little bit off here in Spa, but we stick with it. We come through to lap 3 now. DRS had been enabled, and we're getting right to the back of the Alfa Romeo there of Kimi Räikkönen, but just not quite close enough to do anything. We were all leaving George Russell behind there. That Williams just unbelievably slow. They had absolutely nothing here as usual in Spa. Now is actually up in front of us. More issues on lap 3, and it's Fernando Alonso in the Alpine here, who's got some type of mechanical or engine issue there. You can see the engine giving up now, and it's going to be an awkward spot there for Raikkonen to catch him. He hit him in the back gearbox, and that's some wing damage to Raikkonen. We got through no problems at all. We just pulled to the left, went around, but Raikkonen got way held up as well because Alonso was still in the way. So all of a sudden we were up into P16 by the time we came through to end this 3rd lap of this GP. Just an overall awkward spot for Alonso to have that engine expire, and of course there was not a whole lot of room for anyone to go, especially out of the turn when Raikkonen caught him. So I caught them at a better spot. I was able to react in time here as we came through now to lap 5, and we were over 2 seconds behind Schumacher. So the first thing I was planning on doing was actually making a front wing adjustment, putting up the downforce on the car, because it just felt like we were losing time specifically through these sectors right here, through sector 2 basically of the course. So I was really looking for a little bit more downforce in the car. So we come through now to lap 6, and we had actually closed up a little bit on Schumacher, about half a second. It was down below 2 seconds, 1.8 here between himself and I, but we seemed pretty even when I wasn't making mistakes, but I was really having a tough time getting into a rhythm. But up ahead, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, still scrapping it out with Lando Norris like they were on the start of this race as they head down into that long sweeping left-hander. Norris goes wide, and there's Perez making contact with him, comes back on the track. There goes Carlos Sainz out of the GPA. Huge hit right there, and another massive incident as Daniel Ricciardo piles in, and now 3 drivers out of this Grand Prix. A huge crash. I'm coming through, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what has happened here? I'm going very slow, just trying to not hit anything. Ricciardo, unbelievable impact right there. Of course, we're going to get multiple onboard cameras to show you guys what happened. POV right here from Sergio Perez as they're side by side. You can make this work, but Lando just went wide. Perez just drove into the side of him, comes back on track, hits the AlphaTauri, and then unfortunately Sainz hit him from behind, and then oh my goodness, what an impact right there from Ricardo. But look at Carlos Sainz's little TV camera right here as they go down into this sweeping left-hander. You see Perez just comes on at the worst time, nowhere for Carlos to go. Very unfortunate. And of course we have an onboard here from Daniel Ricciardo. Same corner as he enters, you can see, just doesn't really see what's going on. And at this point, he's just right in the racing line, Perez is, and Ricardo just slams right into the side of him. That was a huge impact. I don't even want to imagine what an impact like that in real life would have caused. Now, as you would actually decide to come into the pit lane, as the safety car, as you can imagine, was out. So we head into the pit lane along with our teammate. We're going to do the double stack. We are going to lose time here, but at the same time, we weren't really going to lose any positions out of it, so I wasn't concerned about waiting for Schumacher's pit stop to complete. So we head down towards our pit box. The Alfa Romeo Giovinazzi exits right there, and there goes Schumacher, and sure enough, we come in. So unfortunately, another one-stop race, so we just put on the hard tire, and that is our pit strategy for the day. We don't have to come in anymore after that, so nice that we at least got to pit under the safety car conditions, make it a little bit easier for us, but kind of hurt the strategy in terms of just freedom of strategy, I should say. So now, of course, we would get ready to go green. Safety car was coming in at the end of lap 8, coming to lap 9. It was still Lewis Hamilton up front. Verstappen was in the mix, and so was Bottas now as we get back underway. And then actually, I lose the back end right there out of the final turn, so I end up losing a bunch of time. And now we're going to come under attack from the Williams driver of George Russell. He sticks his nose up our right-hand side into turns 1. Gets even with us, actually, right there. A little bit of oversteer again on the exit of turns 1, but I put the ARS right into overtake immediately, and we're still going to be side by side heading up towards Radian, but we're actually going to be able to complete the pass right there. And sure enough, as we come through Eau Rouge back out in front of George Russell, and we would be able to comfortably pull away from him. We were up over 2 seconds ahead. Kimi Räikkönen, of course, had that contact with Alonso earlier, who had the engine failure and lost a bunch of his front wing. Well, of course, that safety car brought him back into the mix, and now he was on the fight trying to run us down and get himself back towards the mid-teens, or actually he's already in the mid-teens because we've had so many drivers DNF. We're in 13th right now here in the Belgian GP, so things were going pretty well. Then on lap 13, though, Raikkonen would be able to reduce the gap to us. He had DRS. I wasn't going to fight him too hard because I realized, well, he just closed in on us from like 2 seconds back. He clearly has a way faster car here today. So I just let him have the spot, let him move on with his day, take P13 here, and only 10 laps to go at this point in the GP now. So we were running out of time here, and I was really focused on trying to run down my teammate of Schumacher. That was kind of the goal for the day, was to beat my teammate of Mick Schumacher, and he was just doing a tremendous job in the car so far at this point in the GP. Now Raikkonen, he was getting closer. He had run down Schumacher by the time it came through to lap 15 of the GP. As you can see up on that track map, you got Giovinazzi, you got Ocon up ahead, as well as Lance Stroll, but they all had the pace to stay out in front of us. So it was looking unlikely we were going to get to them, but now you can see Schumacher under pressure here on lap 16. Raikkonen's just going to go right on by him, of course, with the aid of the DRS to help him. He would get up in front of Schumacher, take over 12th place. So now as we came through a little bit later on lap 16 towards the end of sector 2, you can see we're getting closer and closer to Schumacher, but I didn't quite know if we still had the pace to be able to pass him or not. But we come through onto lap 17. Just a quick update of what's going on. Lewis Hamilton still out front over his teammate of Valtteri Bottas. Lando Norris actually closing in on Bottas, so it might not be over between them two for second and third. As you can see, Vettel running in P7 right there, Tsunoda 8th, Stroll 9th, Esteban Ocon there in P10, Gasly, by the way, having a nice day in P5, and Leclerc there, the only Ferrari left running in the 6th position. George Russell way behind all of us here in the Belgian GP. He's having a very, very rough day. So I'm still now on lap 18, trying my best to just get to the back gearbox of my teammate of Schumacher, but I was having a tough time getting there. We were remaining between a half a second to a second gap between us two, and we got it down to about 0.3 of a second as we went down to the final chicane, coming to the final 4 laps already of this GP. A very wild start to this GP, but a very calm last like 3/4 of this race. So we come through now, approaching just 3 laps to go, and it was about the same thing. I just couldn't get closer than about 0.3 to half a second at this point between myself and Schumacher. Now 2 laps to go in this GP, down this long straightaway, trying my best to get their DRS, of course enabled, but he has DRS as well. Still can't get there, so it was just it felt like the last 10 laps of this GP, just trying to get to my teammate Schumacher. We're within striking distance at this point, but do we have an opportunity to make the move? I don't know yet, because he's still got the opportunity to use DRS as well because of Raikkonen being within a second of him. So I was really hoping now, as we were approaching the final lap of this GP, that Raikkonen would find a way to stretch out that gap further than a second to Mick by the time we came up to the next DRS zone. Not this one right here, but the next one, of course, after Eau Rouge. So one lap to go here in the Belgian GP. It was still a half second between myself and Mick Schumacher now, and obviously I tried my best to save as much ERS as possible here, to just use it as much as possible on this final lap. 0.6 of a second between myself and Schumacher. At this point, I just did not even have the ERS on, and then I tried to enable it a little bit more, and as we came through to the end of the long straightaway, still 0.3 of a second between us now, but you can see we are close, not close enough though, as Lewis Hamilton, by the way, out of the final few corners, has now turned it up here at this point in the season. Once again, he is going to come through to win the Belgian GP. He's just going to cruise across the line, and Lando Norris did eventually get past Bottas, and he is going to come through to finish second. Gasly, by the way, is going to finish 4th in front of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Great run by him. Now as we come through, the sweeping right-hander, one last shot. We're still half a second back, but we have ERS in overtake right to the end of this GP now. On this final lap, Schumacher is actually in harvesting mode at this point. You see the red lights blinking. Here's our opportunity on the final lap of the GP. He's going to go right, I go left, down into the final chicane, into the penultimate turn, side by side, and into that final turn. We are going to pull it off, a last lap pass, and it was clean as possible on our teammate of Mick Schumacher. We come through to get P13 at the last second. What a just beautiful pass that was right at the end there over Mick Schumacher, who was in harvesting mode right in the last moments, and that was able to allow myself to make that move and as well get driver of the day, as we got some post-race celebrations for Mercedes.
Race then on one of the all-time classic circuits, but they persevered to take the win here today. Anthony Davidson, a resounding victory today. What set them apart from the rest?
Taking care of the car was absolutely vital today. It's been obvious all weekend that the pace was there, but look at the attrition rate we've had. They would have been very concerned about any minor anomaly towards the latter stages of this Grand Prix.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
A great run, of course, from that Mercedes team. McLaren puts the fight to them, but not enough of a fight. Bottas got the fastest lap of the day, the only driver that we saw break into the 141s here in the Belgian GP. Myself and Schumacher, P13, P14. Very happy to just get him at the line. I honestly didn't think we were going to, and then we were going through that little sweeping left bend there on that final straightaway, and I noticed that he's got his harvesting lights on. I'm like, oh my goodness, we might actually have a chance here, and you could just see the difference in speed once those lights were blinking on the back of his wings. So it really paid off for us there. Obviously no points today, but a wild start to this GP. Ended very calm here in Belgium now, as of course we would have after the GP. At a quick post-race interview there with Claire, saying you really looked in control of your car out there, your team must be thrilled. And I said I couldn't do this without a great team behind me. And then she says, how do you think AlphaTauri will be feeling after that result? Of course, they put together a very strong race. Tsunoda had a solid race, and then Gasly had a tremendous race there up inside the top 5. That finish was close with Kimi. I really wouldn't say it was close with Kimi whatsoever, but I just use whatever answer I could come up with right there. So as always, if you guys enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Some more R&D improvements here on the way in the next one, and hopefully this will really help us get closer to Alpine. You see Alfa Romeo is now ahead of both Alpine and AlphaTauri, and that's why I believe that patch might have changed a couple of things there with the R&D, because unless I just completely missed them just getting really good. But you can see the R&D graph right there. They leapfrogged them both, so great for them, of course, for Alfa Romeo. Romeo now, as we got a lot closer to Alpine, as they have been kind of not doing a whole lot in the last couple of episodes. So after the next one, we actually have a contract expiring, so we can definitely negotiate a new contract with Haas and get some driver perks out of it. So I'm looking forward to that. There you see the point standings before we do end it. Hamilton starting to stretch out that gap over Bottas, so we'll see what he can do after he picked up his 5th win on the season. Can Bottas bounce back in the Netherlands, or is Verstappen going to get his first win of the season in his home GP? It's going to be interesting, and of course, like I said, as always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys are enjoying this series so far. I honestly haven't had this much fun playing a racing game in so long. I am in love with this game, and I would like to say thank you to the Go and Racing members of MJ, Joseph 9001, Timothy Arline, Bubba Jr., Brett Durward, Dark Gengar Gaming, AJ Vasura, Russell Dixon, Kenneth Barnett, Dana9302, King Matt XL, Speed Demon 341, as well as Illinois Diecast. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.